Hello there and welcome. If you're brand new, then my name is Nicola. I'm a yoga teacher, yoga therapist, and also a highly sensitive and neurodivergent person myself. And I support and help other sensitives in their journey through overwhelm, anxiety and stress, and helping them guide themselves back to a life that works for them, self-care that works for them so that they can thrive and share their gifts with the world. I also create content to educate, inform and empower so that we can get the message out there and create the kind of change that's really going to help sensitives thrive in the world. So today's topic is about why HSPs tend to forget their own needs. And this is a topic that's really close to my heart for many reasons. I've had my own experience with completely abandoning myself, and through my own work more recently with many other sensitives, I see it so often. And a lot of what I am doing with clients is to bring in those real subtle shifts that over time create that mindset shift so that we can start to choose ourselves more, create boundaries, etc. So we'll talk about why this tendency is there, and that's really important to understand if you're sensitive or are in relation with anybody that's sensitive. But also how not to. What can we bring in to help us practice the art of self-care, true self-care? Okay, so the first element of why HSPs forget their own needs, and it's not all sensitives, but we do have this predisposition, is because we are literally wired to help. We are wired to be the person that's out there helping other people, supporting other people. Our nervous system is designed, our brain is designed to pick up on the little details, to be excellent at problem solving, to see the bigger picture and be able to offer people the kind of support and advice that really hones in to what they need. And this is such a good quality for the times that we're in, because there's so many people needing extra support right now. The problem comes when that balance is off and we spend maybe all of our energy and time out there in the world with our attention and resources concerned with other people's stuff. And because we're wired and predisposed to be this way, it can lead to us getting really drawn into other people's stuff. And before we know it, we are burnt out. So that's number one. We are literally biologically, physiologically wired to help. The second element, which I don't think gets talked about quite as much, is this tendency with HSPs is we are drawn to meaning. We like the deep conversations. We get passionate about our specific interests and our causes that we're drawn to. And so whether it's a big thing, whether you are an activist and you campaign a lot for an environmental cause, or whether it's something smaller but no less important as parenting your child consciously, which is a tough old job. I'm trying to do that with two myself. Or it could be you have a job, I don't know, in retail, and you are the person that wants to bring meaning and a great experience for your colleagues and the people that come to you, your customers. It doesn't matter what your role is. There is often this drive within HSPs to really lock on to a cause and sometimes be so consumed with doing the best for the good of all that we forget ourselves. So something I certainly have to navigate really carefully, because I do feel really, really passionate about this raising awareness of the trait of high sensitivity and creating a world where neurodivergent folk are much more supported in life. And so I have to be careful myself that doesn't take me away from my own self-care practices, because it can do. It can be really absorbing. So they're the two first elements. The next one is something that can happen. One of the kind of shadow sides of being a highly sensitive person for many, but not all, is the pattern of people pleasing. So if you're not familiar with this term, people pleasing is a behavioral pattern that often is developed quite early on in life, where you shape and augment how you are in order to be acceptable to other people. So it might be that you are very amenable. You always say yes. I'm smiling because this is something that I have really spent a long time working on myself, and it is a tough one to crack. Not impossible, but it can be tricky. And when we get caught up in this, it's this need to constantly do what we think everybody wants us to be like or to do. When we get into that, again, it pulls our attention out into the minds of others, and suddenly other people's opinions, other people's expectations, other people's needs are more important than our own. And this can be one that can be really, really depleting if we don't get a handle on it. So the next element is, on a very basic level, being in a sensitive body can be really overwhelming. So whether it's just on a sensory level, we're taking in more sensory input from the external world. We might have certain sensory issues like textures of clothes or certain noises, etc., that really bother us and create a lot of stress in our system. Emotions can be particularly intense because we feel things so deeply as sensitives. And so when we are feeling those overwhelming sensations in our body, it can be really tempting to stay in here or completely disconnect from our bodies and ourselves. And when we do that, when we disconnect from ourselves and our bodies, we actually lose touch with the information that's going to give us the knowledge of what we need. So that's the next element. And finally, and I think there's probably a huge amount more that you can bring into this, but these are the ones that came to mind. And this last one is a big one. It's the message we get from society. So on a very broad level, society's messaging for everybody, whether you're sensitive or not, is that being busy is better than resting, that productivity and efficiency are always going to be favored over doing things slow with attention to detail, doing one thing at a time of high quality. And that tends to not match up with how sensitives best function. There's also the kind of more specific messaging that we have from society, which still tells us that sensitivity is a weakness. And a lot of the qualities that sensitive folk have is also as a weakness, seen as a weakness rather. And so this kind of feeds into the people-pleasing element. When we're told that we're too emotional, too sensitive, too much, or equally not enough, then we can shape ourselves into the most acceptable version of ourselves, which is often being the helper, the carer, etc., and being always there for other people. And once again, that messaging is then creating a situation where we are more drawn to other people's needs, because that's where we get our validation, our social acceptance, our sense of belonging, and we lose touch with ourselves and what we need. And we can also feel that the needs we have are too much. So, for example, part of my need is to have meaningful work that is flexible and works with my energy, my cyclical and seasonal energy, and not the 9 to 5. And that doesn't really fit into what society tells us about how we should work. Okay. I could go on and on and on about the whys, and maybe you'll have some thoughts of your own as to why you forget your own needs. We are all unique within the sensitive community. We are all different. We all have different elements that feed into this, whether you've experienced a difficult upbringing that can feed into this, whether you've had problems in the workplace and so on. Also, how supported you feel now. The important thing is for maybe to just reflect on what is it? What's the biggest thing that causes you to stay out there in the world with other people's needs and forgetting your own? Yeah. Okay. So let's kind of explore the ways in which we might start to get out of this habit, or at least work on the opposite habit, which is, really to keep coming back to you and stay connected with what you need. So the first one, and I talk about this a lot, and I really feel it's absolutely fundamental when you're sensitive, is to regularly connect to your body. And this is a big one, because if you are somebody who has experienced difficulty early in life, if you have experienced trauma, big T or little t trauma, then connecting to your body can be overwhelming. And in that case, you will most likely need some professional support to guide you back to reconnecting with your body. But either way, it's so important that we start to befriend those sensations and experiences in the body, because, as I said earlier, this is where the information is. Your body has a huge amount of intelligence. One key thing about being sensitive is that we are gifted with a keen sense of intuitive knowing. And this quite often gets switched off through all of the things that I mentioned earlier. And so by connecting to the body, not only are we given information about, well, what is it that we need? Do I need a drink? Do I need a rest? Do I need some time out? Do I simply just need to go to the loo? But we also get access to that feeling of, does this feel right for me? Does this feel right for my family? That kind of deep knowing of things. And that can take a while to reconnect to, but absolutely not impossible, and really important for sensitives, because it's that intuitive knowing that then allows you to start guiding yourself through life in a way that's really aligned with what you need, who you are, and so on. Okay, so the next element of how not to, or one of the ways to begin to move through this tendency, is to start to reflect on your relationship with yourself. Because often I see a lot of what's at the core of why sensitive folk struggle to put in place, self-care that really works, is because at the core of themselves, they may not have accepted themselves. They might have some negative beliefs about themselves, negative feelings about themselves. And this can really drive that behavior. And if this is raising a little bit of feeling in you, then, maybe that's something that's, again, a little intuitive knowing in your body that's telling you, actually, there's something here within you that is maybe worth digging in. And, once again, please seek support of professional therapist and movement specialist, etc., that really can help support you in this. And I spent a lot of time trying to work through these things alone, and then the penny dropped some time ago. And once I started involving a couple of selected people in my own journey, my healing journey, then that really shifted things for me. Because when we are seen and when we are held, we're better able to kind of move those things through us. I feel that, you'll have your own experience. And we also find that we get that kind of social validation almost. So yeah, reflecting on the relationship you have with yourself and what beliefs may be at the core. And if you feel okay and you want to start picking at this yourself, then I find using my journal as a good way to kind of just get things out, almost creating a little dialogue with myself. I find that really helpful. And so this kind of leads on to the next thing, which is about cultivating compassion for ourselves, which we have been really equipped with a deep level of empathy, which again is always taken outwards. And this is part of society's messaging as well, I have to say, because we're kind of told to put others before ourselves all the time. And not that we shouldn't show other people compassion, but if we're not showing ourselves compassion first, then whatever we show other people is not quite rooted in ourselves. And the ways to do this are multiple. Personally, I started with basically practicing a loving kindness meditation from the Buddhist tradition. But you could write yourself little love notes. You could just pop a few words of encouragement around your home to remind you to have compassion for yourself. Practice feeling compassion in your body. And you can start by thinking about somebody else that you feel compassion and love and care for. Feel those feelings in your body and then see how it feels to direct it inwards. And it might feel quite difficult. Probably one of the most powerful ways of really embedding this in your body is the next time you make a mistake or you, ball something up, see if it's possible to do it then, because when the inner critic is talking to you, which is another sort of shadow aspect of being a HSP, is the inner critic tends to be quite loud. Trying to bring in the compassionate voice. I'm doing this because it feels like got one over on the right, one over on the left. Bringing that voice of compassion in when your inner critic wants to go to town is a challenge. It's a huge challenge. So when things are most challenging, that's possibly when it's most needed, and it's probably going to have the biggest impact. Very difficult to do, but not impossible. Okay, so the next thing, again, is another tricky one to do, but really important for any HSP, is to have a little pause to just reflect on and audit the relationships in your life. This is a big one. There is this pull for us to enter into those helper roles, like I mentioned earlier. And when we get into those roles, sometimes, all the way up to often and always, we can end up in relationships and dynamics that are completely imbalanced. And I'm not saying all relationships are like this, but we can get into friendships, romantic relationships, working relationships, where we are giving and not receiving. And this can be a tricky one to really look at, because if you do recognize that there is a relationship in your in your social world or in your personal world where and you'll probably be feeling, oh, right now I know who it is. There's a few things you can do. You can either begin to put in some small boundaries that kind of starts to bring the dynamic towards more balance, or you can start to move away from that person. And I'm not saying this is me saying you've got to get rid of all the people in your life that perhaps take too much. I'm not saying that at all. But the first step is to be really aware of who in your life has had this tendency to take more from you and you're giving to them and isn't actually there for you. And this is all to say this is a two-way process. So it can be really tempting to feel like as a sensitive that's giving, you're the victim in all of this. But actually, if we so willingly give and the other person so willingly takes, then it's part of our responsibility as well to shift that boundary. And it might be in those relationships you can have an open and frank conversation and say, look, I have this tendency and I'm really working on not doing that. So I'm going to be I don't know, saying no a little bit more and trying to ask for some support myself. It might be that you can't have those conversations. And I have had relationships where I couldn't say anything, and I've just had to slowly bring in greater boundaries. And I've had those where I can have that conversation. Can be difficult. Please support yourself with a trusted friend or professional if you're feeling that you want to take action. But if you don't, just in your mind or in your journal, just reflect on, okay, where am I giving away a lot of my energy here? Where is, who are those people I come away from and feel utterly drained? Just to begin this journey of bringing that awareness to you and what you need and where you're getting, where you're receiving and where you're not. So that brings me to my next couple of points, final 2 points. And the first one is about really understanding your preferences. So this, I don't know, this might sound daft, but this has been really important for me, is just knowing what I like, what I don't like, what I want and what I don't want is so important, because we spend so much of our time thinking about other people, doing things for other people, that we can end up being that person, perhaps in a friendship group, that says, oh, I don't mind, you choose where we go, or I don't mind what we have to eat, I'll go with whatever. And while sometimes we might allow that to happen, when that happens all the time, it kind of screams and suggests that we've lost touch with what we like, what our body wants, what we need, what we don't like, and so on. And it's okay. Give yourself permission to like stuff that other people don't like. Give yourself permission to not like what other people like. This is a big one, and I think a lot of sensitives may have, perhaps usually earlier in life, have spent time socializing in a way that really didn't work for them. And perhaps looking back, you can't believe you used to do those kinds of things, knowing yourself so much better now. And this is a little bit of a journey, as all of these things are, to really get back to what you like and what you don't like. And the only way really we can explore that is by doing all of the above things that I've just mentioned. So in particular, connecting to the body. It was a couple of years ago when I realized something that I really, really enjoy is running my hands through the long grass during the summer. It's a really simple thing. I just, from a sensory point of view, I absolutely love it. It's a real treat for me. And yeah, now that I know that, I give myself permission to run my hands through long grass. I just have to be careful of any prickly plants. That is something I've had to learn. Equally, I discovered this a while ago, but realizing that I do not like going out to a pub and accepting that that's okay. That was a real game changer for me, because for a long time I'd beat myself up that I really didn't want to go. I thought that I should want to go and socialize in pubs and clubs. Felt really bad that I would struggle to listen to people and conversation and so on. And I really didn't accept that part of myself. And now that I understand that that's a preference of mine, and I understand myself as a neurodivergent person, I'm okay with it. I'm more than okay with it, actually. So yeah, understanding what you like, what you don't like, and just, what you need and what you don't need. And knowing that it's all okay, whatever you discover. Final thing is kind of linked to what I've just been saying, is about understanding your patterns. So we all have patterns, and I mentioned one of them, the people-pleasing pattern, can be quite ingrained in us as HSPs, particularly if we've had a tricky start to life. But really understanding your patterns so that you can be aware when the moment it gets triggered off. So it could be the pattern of perfectionism, for example, or self-doubt, and just noticing. The more aware we are the quicker we'll be to notice when that pattern comes into play, because of course, those patterns will most likely lead us away from giving ourselves what we need. So the perfectionism pattern is a classic example. If I actually need to rest, eat, go to the loo, but I am still working on a document because I want it to be just right for work, that is a classic example of where a pattern is overriding what I actually need. So awareness is the first key. Don't beat yourself up when the patterns come out, because every single one of us, highly sensitive or not, have patterns. That's just how we've grown up. We have patterns, like little programs that just run automatically. Before you know it, you're like, oh gosh, there we go again. So don't beat yourself up, but over time, noticing, journaling on, sharing with friends, like, oh, I did that thing again. So that the next time that situation comes around, you might be aware more quickly and more inclined to go, oh, steady on, polyperfectionist. We're just going to park this because I've got some needs to tend to. Okay. That was a big one. I really hope me sharing these things has been interesting, insightful, informative, and I hope it kind of opens up a bit of conversation as well. I'd love to hear any comments you have, any feedback, thoughts, musings, and so on that you have about this. Maybe there's something I've missed that's been your experience. I'd really love to hear. And if you've enjoyed this, please consider liking and subscribing. It is an absolute joy for me to connect with other sensitives, other people that are experiencing similar things. So please don't be shy and reach out, and it'll be great to connect. All right. Take care for now, and I'll see you on the next one.